the amount of fiber that we eat is really not as important as we thought, as needed for going to the washroom. Like, we don't actually need that much. Now, when I talk about myself, one thing that I have done is try to regulate myself. And, the first thing you do is you do the typical eat more fiber. So we're going to have fruit and vegetables, and we're hoping that's going to help us. But then we start to do things like drink fiber drinks, because if we really need assistance, that's the next step. And then at some point, you might make your way to laxatives, right? So castor oil or other types of things. And the question is, did that actually help? So did I find that that was the solution? Well, interestingly enough, usually we regulate. And now the question becomes, was it what I did, or was it a process of getting, something else happening? So we'll talk about that in a second. I want to know, Wellness Warriors, have you ever been constipated? Have you ever been in that situation where you needed to help yourself go? And what did you actually do? Please put that in the comments below or in the chat, depending on when you're watching this. Now, for me, I want to start off by pointing something out. Most of the doctors that I watch have somehow or other tried to show us that fiber is not the be-all, end-all answer for constipation. And some of them have even gone as far as to say that fiber is causing some of our constipation. Dr. Mason has 3 videos talking about fiber and why it's not the solution. Dr. Berry has 4 videos talking about fiber and why it's not the solution. And Dr. Berg has 10 plus videos talking about the fact that fiber is not the be-all, end-all in solving constipation. So it makes you start to wonder, like, why are we all so focused on getting this extra fiber? And one thing I want us to think about is that it's normal to go to the bathroom because it's the end result of having eaten food. And so we have to start asking ourselves a question. If I eat, what's causing me to have problems eliminating? And how do I know if I've eliminated correctly? So let's start with, how do I know if I'm eliminating properly? And usually it's because when I do go to do a number 2, it is easy for me to do. So I'm not straining or struggling to do it. And the other thing that we'll notice is that when we do go to the washroom, it's not necessarily urgent, and it's for sure not painful. And the other thing that we're going to notice is that when we go to the washroom, there's a cadence that we each have, and every person is going to be somewhat different in that, in the sense that some people go every day, some people go twice a day, some people go every other day. But there's a general natural cadence that you have that when you're going in a, normally, quote unquote, you end up feeling fine. And if I go more often, I don't feel fine. If I go less often, I don't feel fine. So that rhythm belongs to you. So could I say to somebody, because I go twice a day, they have to go twice a day? No. Now, what should I check to know if I'm eliminating appropriately, or to know if I'm not eliminating appropriately, what should I be checking on? And I think the number one thing that we're told to check on is our hydration, making sure that you're drinking enough liquids. And I've heard this multiple times. I do feel like staying hydrated is just important for us to do. And so I'm not opposed to this idea. Do I think that my hydration has ever had a huge impact on my bathrooming? Personally, I have to say no. I've never found that adding more water helped me to go to the washroom better. I'm noticing that I look frozen on the screen, so let me just fix that quickly. Sorry about that. That should be better. So now the other thing that I will say is the thing that you could check is the foods you're eating. And in actuality, I feel like the foods that you're eating play an interesting role. So one of the things that I did was I looked up what would be, what people with colitis, for example, might be told when they're trying to solve their colitis. Because colitis is one of those conditions where you go to the bathroom more frequently. And I thought, well, they must be told then to totally avoid fiber. But interestingly, what I saw was that when you have colitis, they tell you the potential trigger foods. And I have here insoluble fiber. So, of course, fruits with the skin and the seeds and raw vegetables. And then you have lactose. So, that's the sugar found in dairy. So they're telling you to avoid dairy and cream and cheese, etc. They say non-absorbable sugars, so sorbitol, mannitol, and other sugar alcohols. Okay, makes sense. Sugary foods, so they're saying stay away from sugary foods, pastries, candies, and juices. High-fat foods, so they tell you to stay away from butter, coconut, margarine, cream. Again, if you have colitis, colitis is a condition where you're going to the bathroom often. It's basically everything's running through you. So this stuff makes sense. They say that you should avoid alcohol and caffeinated drinks, beer, wine, whatever, and spicy foods, so hot spices. And then they tell you that the foods you might be able to tolerate are low fiber fruits, so bananas and cantaloupe and honeydew and those kind of things. Lean protein, so fish, lean cuts of pork, etc. White meats, eggs. And then they tell you that you should be able to tolerate refined grains. Not really sure why they refine, but okay. So sourdough, potato, gluten-free breads, white pasta, white rice, oatmeal, fully cooked, seedless, skinless, non-cruciferous vegetables. These are things you might be able to tolerate. And of course, they tell you that you might need to supplement yourself because you're not tolerating a lot. Now, this was what they were suggesting I should do if I'm in the middle of a flare-up for colitis, which is, again, running to the bathroom very frequently. And I was expecting to see that they would tell you to stay away from fiber. But then what kind of surprised me was that then they tell you that when you're back to feeling normal, what you should do is reintroduce fiber-rich foods. And this is all towards staying healthy and hydrated. So oat bran, bean, barley, nuts, and whole grains. Of course, unless you have medical complications. Protein, so the lean meats, fish, eggs, and nuts are still there. Fruits and vegetables, try to eat the rainbow, but maybe you should remove the peel. Calcium-rich foods, so we're back to eating yogurt and kefir and milk, and then foods with probiotics. The problem that I saw there, and what confused me a bit, was this idea that I just got over my colitis situation, and then what I'm being told is now go back to eating foods that are high in fiber. But colitis is I'm running to the back. So that confused me a little bit, but I feel like I did see what I thought I was going to see, which was that while you're in a flare, you diminish the amount of fiber you're intaking. But then I'm confused by the idea that they tell you as soon as your flare is over, go back to pushing fiber, because wouldn't that just mean another flare is around the corner? Which, by the way, is what most people who have colitis have reported to me, that they go in and out of flares, and the flares get closer and closer and closer together. Now, when we look at what we're told when we're talking about what we should do if we're constipated, one of the things that I thought was strange is that if you ask, well, what happens if I happen to overdo my fiber? It actually says you will become bloated, have gas, and have constipation. And I was surprised by that. But then when I checked some of these doctors that I was telling you about earlier, yeah, they say that if you overeat your fiber, you will actually become constipated. So, Wellness Warriors, this is where I start to get a little bit frustrated with the information that we're given. Now, the reason that I'm frustrated is because when we're constipated, they're telling us to add fiber, but yet doctors are saying fiber causes constipation in many if you overdo it. So then, is that really the thing I should do if I'm constipated, is add fiber? So this is a question mark that is in my mind. And I want us to consider something. We eat quite a bit of processed foods. And so I wonder if the processed foods are part of the reason that we struggle so much to manage our own elimination, because one of the things that's often added to processed foods are fiber, right? You buy cookies, they've got extra fiber in it. You buy like almost everything they can put fiber in, cereal, like almost everything they can put fiber in, they do, right? Because fiber is supposed to be so helpful in like, balancing that sugar. And is it possible that because we're constantly eating fiber-rich foods, artificially fiber-rich foods, that we have this constipation issue? This is a question, Wellness Warriors, that I'm throwing out to you to think about, because the more that I researched on this and the more that I looked at stuff and the more that I just tried to back up and say, well, why are we so constipated? And honestly, I feel like the processed foods that we eat cause us to be in a bad position because of the extra fiber. Now, most processed foods have that added fiber. And then when we get stuck, we end up adding vegetables and fruits on top of that, more fiber. And we're already eating such large amounts of food to begin again. So there's a lot of question marks in my mind. Now, the other question mark that I have is, why is it that people doing carnivore can go to the bathroom? Like, if we need all this fiber to be able to go to the bathroom easily, why is it that when I, like, for example, myself, when I did carnivore, I had zero problem going to the washroom? Again, it doesn't seem to add up. And I feel like one of the things that we have a hard time accepting, paying attention to, and really letting ourselves process is that our intestinal internals have more in common with carnivores. So the big cats, like the dogs, like the carnivore animals, than it has in common with the herbivores. So like the cows and the rabbits and we don't have multiple stomachs to process all this veg that we're being told to eat. And I honestly think that's a huge problem. Now, if we were to eat a diet that actually catered to our own intestinal tract, so protein first, the fat that comes along with the protein, and the veg as, a little bit of fun on the plate, do we think that we might solve this huge constipation issue, or even worse, the colitis issue? I mean, both of them are bad, right? I mean, there are people who have colitis who end up with blood in their stool. There are people who are so constipated that it's like painful to eliminate. Both sides of this coin are horrible. But I want us to see that both sides of this coin seem to have fiber somehow playing a role in it on both sides. And so going back to when I was carnivore, I had no problem eliminating. I keep my fiber intake, my veg intake in general very low. I have no problems eliminating. Is there something more for us to understand? So, yeah, I want us to consider that that's something that might be playing a role. Now, here's something I want you to think about. Every week, I do pick a comment on the topic. So I did talk about constipation in Saturday's video. And today, the comment of the week is coming from Blue Dove. And it says, "Great talk. Early in my keto journey, I made a lot of muffins with nut flours, chia, and golden flaxseed, sweetened with erythritol. I was back to straining in the bathroom, and I do better when I get closer to zero carbs, zero fiber, zero sweeteners, getting plenty of animal-based fat." Why I like this comment is it reminds us of that other piece of the puzzle. When we eat the fat that comes along with the meats we're eating, we eliminate. What I find really super interesting about it is that most of us have lived that scenario where we've had a fat heavy meal. Maybe we went out for fried chicken and we had, fried foods and maybe multiple fried foods on the plate, and we eliminate, right? And it's hurried sometimes, right? Because fat's the other thing that can send us rushing to the bathroom if we overdo it. It's part of the reason that castor oil is one of the laxatives that we're given. It sends us, again, rushing to the bathroom. So I want us to consider that if we're eating a healthy diet that's made for humans, so protein and fat first, is it possible that that fat that we're eating is just naturally going to help us to go to the washroom? And I do believe that that's the case. So, Wellness Warriors, if you have found this information at all helpful, I would really love it if you like the video, because it does help me out, and it helps more people to see this information, because we do want this to get in front of more people. Wellness Warriors, I'm always so happy that you guys come back, and everybody who's new, please subscribe and ring the bell so that you can get on the road to health. I definitely want to thank you guys for watching Mind Blowing Mondays, and I can't wait to talk to you all again next week. Have a good evening, guys.